is a Wilcox-Gay Recordette. And this may just look like a normal record player and AM radio, however it is very much not. This thing can actually record the AM radio and the microphone to a record. That's right, you can pirate your AM radio to a record. This is super cool and a super cool piece of history that obviously, unfortunately, does not work. I bought this on eBay broken. The AM radio does actually function, but the record table doesn't even spin, so we definitely have an issue. It did come with some extras. It came with this nice framed Wilcox-Gay Recordette record sleeve. It came with a few records. Some of them actually have stuff cut in them. Some of them are unfortunately too damaged to play, and this one actually is one that's not even recorded to, but unfortunately is too damaged to record to. Very importantly, it actually came with a tube socket layout and a wiring diagram and whatever is on that side. I think that's just a part diagram. So this thing is obviously cool, but it's broken and we need to fix that. As you can see, I've taken it apart a little bit. As you can see, here is actually the table motor. It, for some reason, was missing a few screws when I took it out. And, well, the screws are actually loose in the thing, but just not fully in. And this thing is quite difficult to turn, so we're going to get this thing cleaned up, oiled up. But we also have a very major issue, and that is the idler wheel. If I can pull this back off. This absolutely massive idler wheel is hard as a rock. That's going to be a problem. We need to make this rubber nice and rubberier again, so we need to fix that. I got some chemicals to hopefully revive it. Let's see if they'll work. Now what I'm going to try to do to actually revive this is use this MG Chemicals 408C rubber redo. In my opinion, MG Chemicals is one of the chemical brands to go to. They're what I use for like normal coating and stuff like that. Their chemicals seem to work pretty well, so let's give this stuff a try. Now the instructions say to take this stuff and dampen a cloth with it, rub it into the rubber, and let it dry. So that's exactly what we're going to do. It also says to wear gloves and not breathe in the fumes, so that's also exactly what we're going to do. Not going to lie, I may have breathed in a few of the fumes. It smells like wintergreen. It definitely uses wintergreen. I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how this stuff works. It evaporates almost instantly. That's really weird. I guess see if it's more rubbery now? I mean, doesn't feel that much. Oh wait, holy shit. That is definitely more flexible than it was. And it's way grippy. What the hell is this magic? What in the fuck? That is so grippy. Actually, what the hell? I've thrown out so many idler wheels in the past. If this actually works, I might have to stop buying idler wheels. Well, that ended up going way better than expected, so let's hope we continue that momentum into the rest of this machine, and hopefully it goes just as well. Because that seems to have worked ridiculously well. But now we need to move on to the rest of this thing. I think we'll start with this motor. It spin freely, but I think it should spin a little bit more freely. I imagine the old oil has just kind of turned to a gel at this point. Also, this motor is not bolted together, so it could be rubbing on magnets. Let's just fully pull this motor apart and re-grease everything. This motor looks incredible for its age. I think, honestly, just wipe the old grease off and put some new on. This has no need for polishing, absolutely nothing. That is what I call a free spinning motor. That's a whole lot better. A little lubrication goes a long way. So, one part down. Now we just need to figure out what else is going on with this thing. I think our next point of interest is going to be this thing here. If the idler wheel sits on, it is very stuck. As you can see, it's free, and then it gets stuck in there. So we need to make it not do that. Let's take this thing off. It's really corroded up, so we might have to sandblast that at least. Maybe just clean it. We'll find out. Let's get this thing apart. It should just be a nice little Phillips here. Hopefully it's not a nut on the bottom. That would be a real pain. There we go. There is a nut on the bottom. God damn it. I hate it when they put a nut on the bottom. A little bit of isopropyl can get this off, or if it's actually corrosion. It looks like isopropyl might actually be taking this off. I'm not sure what it is, but it seems to be coming off. Next, I think on the chopping block should be these little rubber things here. These are actually what the motor mounts in, so the motor has some little vibration dampening from the rest of the record player. As you can see, that one's completely good. Well, this one's completely gone. This one's completely demolished. And this one's in pretty damn good condition. So I don't know if I'll be able to find replacements of these. If not, we'll print some of these out of TPU. They won't be as flexible as the originals, but it'll at least do something. It'll be better than nothing. As if with nothing, the motor won't even sit in the correct position. So we definitely at least need something. So I'm probably going to design these and maybe print out some TPU ones and then look for some of these to hopefully buy. And here are the new TPU bushings. They're not quite as flexible as original, but they're more flexible than nothing, and they'll at least hold the motor in the correct position. So let's slap these things in, hoping I can get these things in. I made them the exact same as the original, I think. And then we'll screw this motor in, and then I guess we'll move on to, I think, this mechanism. There we go. That is what we want to see. Weirdly, this are not just the square distance apart from each other like I figured it would. You can only mount this motor in one position where all the screws actually line up. Really weird, but kind of useful to make sure you have it in the exact right spot, I guess. Now let's put this idler wheel back on and see how well this thing actually grips onto it. Looks like how an idler wheel should grip. That works really nice. Okay, let's get this motor wirely attached and move on to this mechanism. Originally, and in my opinion not originally, these wires were connected to these plastic little crimp connectors. I think somebody redid this motor and just, well, actually the entire unit, they're all held together with these. I think somebody just cut all these wires and then re-crimped them together with these. Personally, I'm going to add actual connectors, so if I ever need to take this motor apart again, well, I can simply disconnect it. So we're just going to add 2 connectors. Now, in my opinion, getting at bins like these for all these different sizes is a great idea and will definitely help save you some time in the future if you do a lot of electrical work. And there we go. Now, so nobody accidentally plugs the motor in backwards, I put one kind of connector on each end. Now, some people don't say this is a good idea because you could accidentally plug both outputs together, but in my opinion, that's much less likely to happen than somebody reversing the motor. Obviously, reversing the motor does a whole lot less damage, but if someone's stupid enough to plug both outputs of a motor together and both outputs of whatever this is, I think it's a switch together, they really shouldn't be working on this radio anyway. Now it's time to move on to this arm and this thing here. This actually moves really freely, so I think just cleaning it out, putting some new grease in it, and this will be good to go. This here, probably the same thing. Now I think the first thing we need to do is remove this arm by simply removing this bolt right here. There we go. That's what we want to get. Perfect. Now I think we can push this rod through. That rod, by the way, is the record arm, and it is coming up, but very stiffly. Also, I should probably make sure that wire for the tone arm is, well, not actually catching on anything. Okay, this bar is out. There is a wire actually broken off that. That was broken off before, but I'll have to solder that regard. This thing is covered in a really sticky substance. I'm assuming the old oil or grease has just turned to really sticky stuff. Definitely was not moved at the correct speed, so we definitely need to get this thing cleaned up. I went ahead and reattached that wire to that connector. I'm just going to unplug this thing so it doesn't get damaged any more than it already is. We might have to rebuild it. I'm really hoping we don't, but who really knows? Unfortunately, I messed up the audio for this section, but as you can see, this is now moving very freely without any hesitation. That's exactly what we want. Now let's remove these 3 screws so we can get out this kind of corkscrew thing. And here is that thing. This thing actually moves really freely. I think this has definitely been rebuilt recently. Unfortunately, I'm actually out of the kind of grease I'd want to use in this thing, so honestly, I'm not going to rebuild it right now because I'd have to put the wrong kind of grease in it, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to reuse the old grease because, well, it seems to work really well. Now we should be able to pull this thing up into this. For when you're cutting the records, it should just pull this thing in with the turntable, making it so your record gets cut. Now, before we do anything else, I think we should probably see if this thing will even work. So let's get this thing plugged in, make sure that spins, and make sure the radio still works. Okay, everything should be plugged in. Let's see if we have any audio. Oh, there we go. Had to warm up a little bit. Turn that volume back down. See if we can get a radio station here. Well, there we go. So we have the AM radio still working. Now let's see if the phonograph works. I think we just turn this to phonograph, turn it on, flip the switch. Hey, that's what we want to see. Looks like our turntable is turning. Perfect. So let's move on to seeing about this thing. Now everything I saw, they said to use a plastic disposable plate, aka the one YouTube video I saw of somebody cutting a thing with it. Unfortunately, I don't have any plastic disposable plates, but I do have this random sheet of plastic, so we'll give that a try and see how that works. But with it on and the volume all the way up, if we touch this needle... Yeah, I don't know if the microphone's picking it up, but I can actually hear my finger on the needle. So actually, it might actually just be working. So let's try and cut something with this thing. First, we're going to try the microphone, and then we're going to move on to just recording from the radio, just because I don't have too much faith in that microphone still working. Let's find out. Let's give this thing a test. Test, test, 1, 2, test, test, 1, 2. Let's see if this is recording onto this thing. I kind of doubt it, but now let's move on to the radio in case this microphone is not working. There we have a little bit of radio. It's very staticky, but let's see if it'll record the radio. Let's give that a little bit. That should be good. Let's cut this thing off, and then we'll throw this on a record player and see if it'll actually play. Now, technically, this thing should be able to replay this as well. Unfortunately, I don't really have a needle for it yet, so let's just throw this on a record player I don't really care about and see if this will actually play. And I say a record player I don't really care about because I can't imagine this is good for the needle. Unfortunately, attempting to play it from this has led to no avail. Those grooves are not deep enough, and that's also not even the right speed. Those grooves are not deep enough for this thing to do absolutely anything with, so that's going to be a problem. Let's just put this under the microscope and see if we at least have wiggles in our lines. Here is a standard 45, and as you can see, those grooves move quite a bit. However, if we go over to our fancy 78 and zoom way in, I unfortunately cannot tell whatsoever due to whatever this piece of plastic is that I used. Actually, I know what it is. It's part of a backlight out of an LCD. But that, I really can't tell if those grooves move or not. It honestly doesn't look like they do, but I really can't tell. Try this again, and I'm going to loosen this screw right here, which I believe will put more weight down here on the tone arm, which hopefully maybe will help us cut a little bit deeper. I don't really know, but that's what I'm pretty sure that does. Looks like I have to talk a little bit louder into this microphone. As you can see, when I talk really loud in this microphone, that actually lights up and lets me know that we're actually recording. So I didn't have that light before, so that might be why we don't actually have anything on our record. So let's try this again. Testing 1, 2, how's this sound? As you can see, we now have a flashy light here when I'm talking, so it might actually be cutting a little bit deeper this time, and it might actually be cutting the waves. This is seeming to maybe work. That looks a lot better. Now let's switch over to the radio and see if we can get a little bit of the radio recorded. Switching over to the radio, as you can see, I have to have the volume way louder than I thought. As you can see, now we have that blinky light, so now let's try recording from the radio. I don't really like how this plastic's cutting. This definitely is not the right kind of plastic for this. I really just need to buy some plastic plates. But, hey, I don't have them right now. Fortunately, I think we're in the same boat. I don't think that is... I'm pretty sure that's just surface level. I highly doubt we're ever going to get this needle grab onto any of that. Fortunately, I was right. That definitely did not work. Let's see if I can do some more searching and see if I can find a piece of plastic that this will cut. Here is a real 78, and as you can see, there is wiggles in those lines. They do look pretty straight, but there is wiggles. Now, if we go over to our disc I got here on this lid here, so you can see a little bit better, if we zoom in here, honestly, those look pretty much straight. I really am not seeing any slight wobble to them that would make me say that they have any, like, sound on them. So I think we might have an issue with our pickup cartridge. That is really unfortunate. So in the next part, we're going to rebuild that, probably also order a new, well, actually, recording needle, the little cutter piece, just in case ours is currently dull, but it does kind of seem dull, but unfortunately I don't think that's the only issue we have. That is very unfortunate. But if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe for part 2, and hopefully we'll then finally get this thing working. I believe we're going to have to rebuild that cartridge, and I'll get a new cutting needle ordered. I found them online. They aren't too expensive. You can get replacement ones. I think I actually already ordered one, so I'll have to maybe look for that. But as you can see, it's looking awesome. The radio at least works, and this is at least spinning now. There's just something going on with that. As you can see, I even add a little bit more weight to try to get it to cut a little deeper, but yeah, it definitely has some issues, but it's coming along. It's coming along. MG Chemicals 804